Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about firewood, and we'd like to thank R. Schreiber for giving us a 5-star rating and review on Book 4. And if you haven't gotten a download yet, our new book is Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, Book 4 on Amazon, and we dropped the price to $1. And you can download this to any smart device. And if you're checking out the book, look at the link to Dripping Springs Oyas.
In the flower chapter.
Right.
But why?
Because they're kiln dried, just like some good firewood, if you plan on bringing it inside and you don't want bugs or moss on your firewood.
Good to know.
Scientists really can't tell when humans first started using fire as a tool, but estimates vary from 230,000 to 1.5 million years ago.
Wow.
So ancient man, firewood allowed them to cook food, provide light at night, some warmth, and the ability to scare off predators, because ancient man had to deal with giant bears, saber-toothed cats, and in Australia, there were giant predatory kangaroos. They had 6-inch long teeth, 3 times bigger than a modern kangaroo. They're about 10 feet tall.
Wow.
And weighed 500 pounds. And they liked meat. Some common types of firewood are oak, maple, cherry, birch, pine, elm, chestnut, hickory, fir, and spruce.
Are you just going to list trees?
Well, there's a lot of different types depending on the part of the country you're in. And you want to pick your firewood based on where you're going to be burning it and what qualities you want out of it. So, for example, inside your home, if you're using it for heat in a wood-burning fireplace or a wood stove, you're looking for well-seasoned hardwood. And the hardwoods generally come from broadleaf trees like oak, walnut, maple, cherry, ash, birch, hickory, and dogwood. The hardwoods are a little harder to start, but once they get going, they're going to produce more heat and burn more slowly than the softwoods. Most of the softwoods are coming from conifers, like pine, fir, cedar, and the larch.
The larch?
You know, I learned how to identify the larch from Monty Python.
No, I did
when I
not
was a
know
young
that.
guy.
Why would I know that?
So if you're more interested in producing a higher flame and want a crackling and popping sound out of your fireplace, then you can go with a softer wood like fir or pine. They're both popular for adding atmosphere to your fire. And you can burn a couple types at the same time. So you can use like an oak or a walnut or an oak and a maple primarily for the heat that it produces. And then you can throw in a piece of fir or pine and you get that atmosphere, the popping and the higher flame.
Exciting.
For wood-burning stoves, most pros are recommending oak, maple, beech, ash, and hickory. So a hardwood seasoned for at least a year. And this is going to give you the most heat and a slow burning fire. And if your area doesn't have the hardwoods like that, a couple of the softwoods that pros recommend for a wood stove are yellow and white pine, red cedar, fir, and redwood. But I would check my manual for the recommended wood, and most are recommending only hardwood for higher efficiency and lower emissions. If you don't use your fireplace or stove often, you can burn a softwood, and the softwoods are going to be less expensive. They're producing less heat, so a good choice for spring and fall fires. And the softwoods are going to burn up to twice as fast, so this is good for a short period of time if you're burning a fire for like a party. Softwoods like pine, fir, redwood, and cedar are great for fire pits and campfires because they produce a very large flame and they burn very fast, so you actually have more control over your fire.
Interesting.
If you plan on cooking food over a campfire, you'd want to use hardwood firewood like hickory, oak, pecan, cherry, or mesquite. It's going to add some flavor to your food. And you want to avoid resinous softwoods like pine, juniper, and pinon because it's going to make your food taste bad. What's interesting about the pinon, it's Pinon. It gives off a pine scent, and it creates a very large fire because it's very resinous. And a lot of people say that they love the scent, and it keeps away mosquitoes and other pests.
Interesting.
When shopping for firewood for a fireplace or wood stove for heating, you can compare the BTU ratings, and you'll see this online comparing a lot of different firewood. Hardwoods are going to have the highest BTUs, softwoods the lowest. And some of the highest ranked wood based on really good BTUs, They burn for a long time. They're easy to split. They produce low smoke and low sparks. Are red oak, hard maple, hickory, apple, cherry, ash, pecan, and dogwood.
Pecan.
Yes.
Pecan.
Pecan and pecan. I spoke to Sharon from Firewood.com, and she said not to burn willow.
Why not?
Because it doesn't produce enough heat. She said even if you burned a whole tree, it wouldn't produce enough heat to be worth all the energy of chopping it up and splitting it. It's weird, isn't it? So Sharon suggested a blend of maple and oak for very good heat. It's going to produce red-hot coals for cold evenings. And then she suggested add some birch into it for a crackling, popping sound and a nice flame. And you want seasoned firewood.
What is it?
So this is wood that's been cut, it's split into sections, and then dried for at least 6 months. But most pros are recommending let it dry out for at least a year or more. And that's
How would you
considered,
know?
like if you're buying it somewhere?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they're honest. And they tell you. But you can kind of tell. So most seasoned firewood, it's going to look dark or dark gray in color. The ends are going to start to crack, and it should feel light. When you bang two pieces together, you should get a sharp, cracking, hollow sound rather than a dull sound. I mean, if you've done any wood chopping, you're going to be able to tell right away.
Wood shopping? Is this like a thing?
Firewood shopping. Yes, if you have a wood stove, yes, it's a thing.
But like if you're going to like a gas station or a home
Right.
center and it's prepackaged, how are you supposed to know?
Right. Well, that's why you're going to look at it and get a feel for it. Most of them should be selling seasoned firewood.
And then how do you know if it's like a hardwood or a softwood?
Most of the labels are going to say it on it. The problem with some of your local hardware stores, if they're buying it from a dealer, they're just wrapping their firewood sections in a piece of plastic wrap.
Okay.
So then again, you've got to kind of trust them. But that's why you kind of need to look at it, get a feel for it.
But then another concern is like, how are they storing it? So
Right,
are they leaving it
exactly. Yep,
outside
yep,
so
absolutely.
it was seasoned, but
Right.
now it's been on the rain?
Right. Right. If you're buying in bulk, you want to see where they're storing it.
Right, because
And
I'm
it's-
thinking like a gas station where
Right.
they have like all the
where
pallets.
it's out all the time.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you need a moisture meter. And the problem with burning firewood that's not properly seasoned is it's too wet, so it's going to be difficult to start, hard to keep burning, and it's going to deposit more unburnt gases and particles called creosote in your flue, and potentially that can be a fire hazard.
Okay.
The Chimney Safety Institute says there's about 25,000 chimney fires a year in the U.S., so this creosote inside your flue can ignite. It can cause temperatures up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which can damage all of the ductwork, also set your roof on fire or your house on fire. And there's a product called Chimfex, so it's Chimfex, and this is a chimney fire extinguisher. It looks like a traffic flare.
Okay.
You pull this cap off and you use it as a striker, and you strike it against the end of this tube. It lights, you throw it into your fireplace, and it creates a dense smoke that puts out the fire. Interesting, isn't it?
You're lighting it on fire?
You're you're lighting it, but then it creates smoke, and it puts out the fire. So it's like a smoke bomb to stop a chimney fire. Coolest thing ever. And you should also have a Type A fire extinguisher handy. The EPA suggests moisture content of 16 to 20% for the best performance in wood stoves and fireplaces. And you can get kiln-dried firewood. So this has been heated to bring down the moisture levels to between 10 and 20%. And by drying firewood in a kiln, you're also killing any bugs or fungus. So this is great for firewood that you're buying in small amounts and you're storing it inside your house. And you know, the first patent for kiln-dried firewood in the U.S. wasn't until 1983.
Okay.
It seems a while. It seems like it should have been much earlier than that. The Department of Agriculture also recommends kiln-dried firewood in many areas of the U.S. to prevent invasive pests if you're going to be burning campfires in national parks. Because they don't want you moving it from different areas.
Right.
Because, invasive species.
Bummer.
A moisture meter is a great tool to have for checking your firewood moisture. So it's very accurate, easy to use. You just press the meter against the wood and it's going to give you a reading. And you're looking for 20% or less. Some top-rated meters. AccuMaster, it's AccuMaster. General Tools, Dr. Meter. Xtech, Extech, and Steel. So it's Stihl. They make the chainsaws.
Right.
And they now have a moisture meter. You can also use a moisture meter for your outdoor decking. You can check the moisture levels before you put down sealers or stains. And some of the moisture meters, I would get something that also allows you to test concrete or brick. That way you can test moisture levels before you apply a sealer.
Nice.
If you're using firewood for heating your home and you're going to be purchasing in bulk, you're going to find firewood dealers using the term cord, C-O-R-D, or fractions of a cord. And the term was originally used in Britain in the 1600s for a bundle of firewood, and they would tie it up with a cord that you would carry to your house. And the early U.S. settlers, they were cutting 4-foot lengths of firewood. They would stack them in piles for a team of horses to pull to their house. So the standard became a 4-foot length of wood, stacked 4 feet high and 8 foot wide. So that's considered a cord, and it's going to be 128 cubic feet. But when firewood is cut and split and stacked, there's much more airspace, so you're really not getting 128 cubic feet. And if wood is your main fuel for heating in a cold climate, you could go through as many as 8 cords of wood. So if this is your first home and you're primarily using a fireplace or wood stoves, be prepared to buy in bulk. If you're going to the dealer for firewood, the firewood should be split and stacked tight and all pieces parallel rather than crisscrossed, because you're going to pay more for that airspace. Most of the wood won't be cut in 4-foot lengths. You may have 2-foot lengths touching end to end for that 4 foot, or you might have a shorter size, so you might have fractional cords. So a third of a cord is going to have all the lengths 16 inches, which is popular for fireplaces and stoves. You can get a quarter cord, so the lengths are 12 inches. A half cord, all the lengths are going to be 24 inches. Then it's going to be 4 foot tall and 8 foot wide.
Okay.
So another term for a fraction of a cord is a rick, so R-I-C-K, or they might call it face cord. So if you see face cord, you know that it's been cut down from that 4 foot length, and you just need to find out what fraction it is. A full cord of softwood can weigh around 2,500 pounds.
Wow.
A full cord of hardwood, about 5,000 pounds. So a small pickup can carry about a quarter of a cord. A full-size 8-foot pickup bed, you'll get about a half a cord in there.
Interesting.
You want to pick the length of your firewood based on what's easily going to fit into your fireplace or wood stove. I would check the manual if I have a wood-burning stove and see what's recommended. 16 inches is very common, but some of the small wood-burning stoves, they want you to have 12 or 14 inches. If you're storing your bulk firewood outside, you want to keep it off the ground. You don't want it settling into the soil, absorbing moisture, attracting bugs and pests. You want to keep airflow under the stack. You want to keep the top covered, but you want the sides open for airflow. And research found that most of the moisture is released through the ends of the log. So you want the sides open for sun and wind. You want to keep the wood about 10 feet or more from the house and 6 inches off the ground. And stack it with the bark up, and it's going to help it shed water when it rains. And if you're stacking this next to a shed or a structure, you want to leave at least 6 inches for airflow.
Interesting.
You can build your own rack for storing firewood, and there's a lot of plans online. PopularMechanics.com has a nice article by Mark Clement with some tips on building a rack. Some top-rated firewood racks. Shelter Logic, they have 4-foot and 8-foot racks that come with a cover. Landman, Landmann, and Woodhaven, Woodhaven. And if you're putting this on your lawn, I would build a brick patio base to support it.
Okay.
If you're buying or chopping wood and you plan on splitting it yourself, a splitting axe or a maul, M-A-U-L, will do a better job of splitting wood than a standard axe.
Why?
You know, axe, spelled A-X-E, is how they do it in Europe. And in the U.S., it's pretty much just A-X for axe.
All right, so why won't a regular axe work?
So a splitting axe or a maul is going to have a wedge-shaped head and a blunt edge, and this is going to crack and separate the wood, where a standard axe has a much more narrow head. It cuts into the fibers, and it usually gets stuck. So if you have a, let's say a 16-inch piece of wood that you're trying to split, it's just very irritating. So you're going to do it's going to be much easier with a maul. And a maul 6 to 8 pounds is the easiest to control. They usually have a longer handle than an axe too, so as you're swinging down and chopping into this wood, if you miss or hit the edge, it's not going to swing down into your foot or leg as easily as an axe would.
That's a good thing.
You should split your logs on a stump or create a splitting block with a large piece of wood, and you can partially bury this in the ground and then make sure the top is level. You want to keep it low to the ground. You don't want it any higher than knee height. And that splitting block is going to help the force of the maul split the wood. If you set it up on the ground, it's going to absorb a lot of that power. On large pieces of wood, you're going to focus towards the edge of the wood and work either with the grain or cracks and find weak spots so it splits easily. On smaller pieces, you're just going to strike in the center.
Okay.
You want to wear goggles and gloves, and leather gloves actually get very slippery on wood or fiberglass handles, especially in damp conditions. So these cotton or cotton polyester gloves that are dipped in textured rubber, they actually do a great job for splitting wood. They're going to protect against abrasion, and they give just a great grip. You're not going to have to hold the handle as tightly hold onto it. So there's a couple of top-rated companies, Atlas and Ansell, Ansell, and they have top-rated rubber dip gloves. And the palm side is rubber, and the back is just cotton. So they have great flexibility and airflow.
Nice.
Some top-rated mauls, Fiskars, it's Fiskars, Husqvarna, Husqvarna, and True Temper. And it's interesting, Husqvarna makes the chainsaws,
Right.
and they also have the mauls. A couple of tips I saw for splitting firewood is take a bungee cord and wrap it around the log, and then you're going to start splitting it and just slowly working around the edge, and it's going to break into all of your pieces, and they're not falling over. So normally when you're splitting your firewood log, half falls over, and then you have smaller pieces. Sometimes they don't stand as well upright when they get smaller. So this is going to keep them all together. Another thing I saw was this gentleman used an old car tire, and he put a couple of logs inside it, and then he split them, and that tire held all the pieces, so he never had to bend over. Cool. So I thought that was pretty cool. Sharon from Firewood.com had a couple of tips on starting a fire in a fireplace.
Okay.
So she said make sure you open the flue. A lot of new homeowners don't know how to open the damper on their fireplace. So she said she gets a lot of calls, emergency calls, when she's selling firewood to new homeowners. So this is the flap that you open and close inside your fireplace. So you're going to open it when you build a fire, and then once the fire is out and cold, you're going to close it so you're not losing heat in the winter. And that damper can be controlled with a lever or a chain. You want to check it out with a flashlight. Make sure it opens and closes fully before you start your first fire.
Okay.
Use 4 to 7 pieces of newspaper as your tinder, then 2 to 3 handfuls of kindling, and place the newspaper in the center of your fireplace grate. Put your kindling on top of the newspaper, leaving space for airflow. You're going to put 2 big pieces of firewood on either side of the newspaper, then 2 crisscrossed on top of that, and then light your newspaper.
Okay.
And that would be considered like a log cabin technique for setting up your firewood. So you have crisscross layers, so 2 pieces parallel, then 2 pieces parallel on top of it. And you can stack that pretty high, and you have your tinder and kindling all inside on the bottom.
Why don't you explain the difference between tinder and kindling?
So your tinder is like your fire starter. So this is very flammable. You have newspaper, dryer lint is really good, small, thin, dry twigs, something that's going to start immediately. Over that, you're going to put your kindling. So this is small, thin wood that's going to burn longer to start your main wood, or it can be very thin scraps of wood, and that's going to burn longer. A couple of other techniques is the teepee method. So you're going to start with a pile of tinder and kindling, and then you're going to lean your wood up in a cone shape around your kindling, and this is good for campfires. It starts fast. You can do the lean-to. So you have one large piece on the bottom, and then you're going to lean smaller pieces against it on both sides, and you're tucking kindling and tinder between the pieces.
Okay.
You can create a pyramid. So this looks like the log cabin. You're starting out with the largest pieces, and you're working in layers up to small pieces, and you've put your tinder and your kindling in the center of this on the bottom, and this leaves a lot of airspace. You can also do the top-down burn. So you have a pyramid shape, and then on top, rather than putting it in the bottom, you're putting your tinder and your kindling on the very top of this. So now you lighting this, it's going to slowly burn down. It's pulling air up, and it's warming the wood below. And pros say that you're going to get less smoke and a cleaner burn. I saw an interesting electric fire starter at the last hardware show. It's called Luftleiter. It's Loftlighter. And all you do is you touch this to the wood, you turn it on, and it has a heating element and a fan. It creates super hot air, and that starts your fire.
Nice.
A couple of top-rated fire starters. You've got Dragon in a box, and this comes in a small cardboard box that looks like Chinese takeout.
Mm-hmm.
So inside the box, they have these non-toxic wax and paper fiber chips. You light the cardboard, and this will burn for about 15 minutes to start your firewood.
Oh, nice.
You can get stump chunks, and this is shredded wood made from the stumps of trees.
Mm-hmm.
And what's nice about this is they don't cut down any trees to make it. They just use existing stumps.
Oh, good.
So it's pretty cool. Fat wood is also made from the stumps of trees, but they use pine trees, so there's no added chemicals. It's very resinous, so this makes a really good fire, and it's water resistant. So, if it gets wet, it'll still light.
So good for like camping?
Yeah, excellent. Camping fire pits. And then there's something called lighter balls. These are small, round balls. It has a cotton wick, and it's made out of ground up corn cobs, wood shavings, and wax. And it's also water resistant.
Nice. Do you have anything else to add?
For fireplaces and stoves, use a well-seasoned hardwood for the best heat. You're looking for 20% or less moisture content. For campfires, use hardwood if you're cooking on it, and it's going to give you a longer-lasting fire. For fire pits and campfires, you can get less expensive softwood. You get a nice high flame, and then you get the crackling, popping sounds of a fire. I would have a Type A fire extinguisher always handy. That's for wood and paper. Type B is for liquids, like oil, gas, and kerosene. Type C is electrical fires.
Good to know. Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, the Spotify mobile app, the Google Play Music app, iHeartRadio, and CastBox.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com and check out Cindy's Twitter at FixItCohost.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.